Hi, good morning, everyone. We are going to be starting exactly at 11:30. So it's going to be around 7 more minutes. But thank you so much for joining. Hi, for anyone who's just joining us, we're going to be waiting around 3 more minutes, and then we'll start with the presentation. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today for our virtual information session. My name is Noor Gadanfar. I'm a senior planner with Asakura Robinson, which is one of the consultants that was hired by the parish to run the St. Tammany Parish Comprehensive Plan, or as we're calling it, New Directions 2040. So just to walk you through our agenda today, it's a brief welcome from us. And then Matt and I, who is the project manager on this project, are going to be going through the presentation, kind of providing a little bit of background on the study and then our initial findings. And then we're going to be opening it up to questions and answers and discussion for the last 45 minutes. And as we go through the presentation, feel free to type in any questions you have in the Q&A button that you have on your interface. And we will make sure to answer all the questions at the very end. And with that, I will hand it off to Matt.
Hey, thanks, Noor, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second public meeting this week. This is a repeat show of yesterday's meeting. It's an update on where we are in the visioning process, which is the first phase of the comprehensive planning process. And you may have joined us back in November when we had our first two virtual public meetings. There'll be some repeated information in this presentation to review kind of the basics of where we are. And as well, we'll be including as well some preliminary findings from our the visioning process so far, as well as our examination of some of the demographic, economic, and environmental trends in the parish over the last 20 years. And so we'll provide that update for y'all and then have a good amount of time reserved for Q&A and discussion. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time to get to everyone's questions. And so with that, we'll jump right in. But as Noor mentioned, feel free to use the Q&A function and the Zoom control panel to type any questions that you may have, and we'll keep track of those and get to those. So just to get started on the basics here, what is a comprehensive plan? Essentially, it's the foundational policy document for a community. It has a broad scope and covers the full jurisdiction of an area. Typically, zoning regulations must be in conformance with the land use plan within a comprehensive plan. There is a long time frame for comprehensive plans. You may hear about capital improvement plans, for instance, that specify funds for projects that are within the next 1 to 5 years. But we're looking much farther than that. We're looking over the next 20 years at the big picture. And so while comprehensive plans do include typically a section dedicated to implementation and specific actions that various actors need to take to fulfill the plan, these tend to be updated every 5 to 10 years or so over in a comprehensive update. The idea is to guide local decision-making around land use and capital improvements. So recognizing that a lot of different entities are responsible for the parish's infrastructure and facilities, and not just the parish alone. For instance, the State Department of Transportation Development owns and operates, maintains many of the parish's streets. There are different recreation districts that operate different recreation facilities. There's the school board that operates, of course, many different campuses around the parish. And then, of course, there are all of the handful of different municipalities from Slidell to Folsom and everywhere in between. So there are a lot of different actors involved in coordinating these various decisions. And so the comprehensive plan's purpose is really to provide the really high level comprehensive guide and strategy to each of these different actors and agencies. The idea is that it's informed by and accessible for all members of a community. And so while it is a technical policy document, it shouldn't be overly full of technical jargon that everyday people can't understand. This is a document for the people of the parish and should be accessible to all of them. It covers the full jurisdiction of the unincorporated parish. So individual municipalities like Slidell, Covington, Mandeville have their own comprehensive plans, and a number of them are actually in the middle of updating them right now. So this plan does not apply to those incorporated areas, just the unincorporated parts of the parish. And finally, comprehensive plans are typically formally adopted by a local legislative body. In the case of St. Tammany Parish, that would mean the Zoning Commission, Planning Commission, and the Parish Council. So why a comprehensive plan for St. Tammany Parish? Fundamentally, to provide the factual basis for land use decision-making. I mentioned earlier, we're examining recent trends in demographic growth and economic changes, environmental changes, and so we're compiling our findings from those into a report called a parish profile that will be published in the next month or two. That will provide a lot of data for people to help make decisions on land use and informing this process. And so by doing this analysis, we're educating, informing, and engaging the broader public to create ownership of the plan. It's important that that the public understand that this is a document that represents their vision and their priorities for the future. And so that when the time comes for adoption, to make sure that it does include those priorities accurately, does accurately reflect those priorities. And so that's why we're engaging in a thorough engagement process. It's helpful for resolving points of conflict in advance. So rather than addressing land use decision-making on a piece-by-piece basis, which currently happens whenever a proposal comes for development in front of the, say, Planning and Zoning Commission or Council, this is an opportunity now to really have a broad conversation about the big picture land use throughout the parish, and really have conversations about potential future points of conflict, so we can address those now in a holistic way. And with the result of giving more certainty to landowners and developers about what their land ought to be used for in the future. And so the comprehensive plan includes various perspectives and the priorities of representing of the parish citizens, and so that there is less arbitrary decision-making in the future. The comprehensive plan is codified in the parish's code of ordinances, which state that the Planning Commission has the power and duty to adopt a master or comprehensive plan. It also states that the Zoning Commission has the power and duty to adopt a comprehensive plan. So currently, land use decisions are currently made by a number of different decision makers and informed by a number of different policies. The current comprehensive plan is New Directions 2025, which is adopted by the parish council by resolution back in 2000, 20 years ago. It includes future land use maps. On the slide is pictured an example future land use map from that original plan, which is now somewhat out of date. But in addition to the current comprehensive plan, there are ordinances, including Unified Development Code and subdivision regulations that contain the specific provisions that prescribe exactly the type of development that can happen on land based on its zoning classification. So whereas New Directions 2025 doesn't include those specifics, adoption of a comprehensive plan can provide the policy mandate to update those implementing ordinances that actually do have the teeth for enforcement. Decision makers, of course, include everyone from the Zoning Commission, Planning Commission, Board of Adjustments, Parish Council, and Parish President. Here's a look at our project timeline. Beginning in the fall was the visioning process, again, which includes a number of these online public meetings, as well as a couple of in-person engagements that we've done which we'll give you a glimpse of in a bit. I mentioned the trends analysis that's been ongoing, will result in a published document the next month or two. This process of visioning is continuing today and through the end of this month. Our website, newdirections2040.com, is where we're inviting everyone to, with a stake in the parish and the parish's future, to complete a survey, to use a couple of online tools to provide their input on their priorities and values. And so in the meantime, we're developing population growth scenarios. And so really looking down the future at what are the implications of growth by, say, 50,000 people or 100,000 people or 200,000 people. What land would have to be developed and what facilities would have to be expanded, and what kind of effect is that going to have on existing land use? We're looking at those questions according to each of these different types of growth scenarios, and look forward to presenting those in the spring, hopefully in a workshop format with people, so we can have really deep discussions one-on-one, face-to-face. We're going to be following Department of Health recommendations for public gatherings, but our hope is that the pandemic will we'll have a good grip on it and be able to gather safely in person to do that. In the meantime, we've been doing a lot of these virtual meetings in order to allow people to participate in a safe way. But along with those growth scenarios, we're also presenting the draft vision statement and goals that are essentially developed through the public input that we've been getting since the fall. And so once we get some good vetting of those draft materials and statements, we'll incorporate those into a draft plan and put that up for public review in the fall, with the intent of finalizing the plan, putting it up for public hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commissions and Parish Council by the end of this year, perhaps spilling over into 2022. We'll see. Okay, I mentioned the website, newdirections2040.com. Please do check it out if you haven't already. We've got some really easy to use and fun tools where you can register an idea. Perhaps you have a general idea for the parish. You can post it on the ideas board, which is a publicly viewable, kind of like a bulletin board where you can post an idea and then other people can either upvote it or downvote it. You can upvote or downvote other people's ideas and see which ideas are the most popular. If you have a specific idea or concern about a specific place in the parish, you can mention that on the ideas board, or you can also mark it on our map, where you can drop a pin that shows places that you love and want to preserve, places where you want to see some kind of change, or places that you have some other kind of idea that you wanted to share with the planning team. And there's also a more traditional survey where we're asking for instance, the 3 words that describe your vision for the future of the parish. Responding to these questions and making sure we get a good amount of responses is really important, so we can take all these inputs and put together a draft statement for your review. Okay, and so some of the themes that we've heard so far, this is by no means an exhaustive list. We will present eventually an exhaustive list, but just wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of the themes we've been hearing so far. First and foremost, we've heard a lot about the need to reduce traffic congestion to make it easier to get from point A to point B, whether you're commuting to work or going to school or simply trying to run a few errands. We've heard a lot about the increasing challenge of getting around the parish. Improving drainage and preventing flooding have also emerged as major priorities, as well as preserving greenery. The parish is blessed with a very beautiful and rich natural environment. And it's clear that residents and other stakeholders have a lot of value that very highly, particularly as it pertains to new development, wanting to make sure that we don't clear cut new properties, new developments, preserving trees. We heard been interesting having less strip mall style commercial development. We haven't heard so much about the kind of commercial development people do want to see, but we look forward to having that kind of conversation when we present the growth strategies and talk about preferences for different styles of land uses, which will be part of that process. And finally, we've heard a lot about people wanting to have more opportunities to walk, to bike from their neighborhoods to neighboring neighborhoods to local destinations, to get to parks and trails around the parish, such as the Tammany Trace. People wanted to see more trails and sidewalks connecting their neighborhoods. And this was an image from a recent engagement event. Just want to give you a glimpse of some scenes from the handful of pop-ups we did back in November. We had a beautiful straight 4 days in which we were able to meet with folks and families at the Coquille Parks and Recreation Center, the Camp Salmon Nature Park, Madisonville Makers Market, and Folsom Market were really great opportunities for us to meet at a distance with folks and engage on these ideas. We had the same exact materials that are available on the website, so don't worry if you weren't able to attend any of these events in person. You can still have your say using the same materials on the project website right now. Also want to mention the steering committee that the Parish Council recently established, which includes 21 total citizens, 14 of which are appointed by each of the council members, also including 7 parish president appointees. We have scheduled a first meeting for later this month, and the group will be meeting a handful of times throughout the process to guide the team's process, review initial findings, and advise on draft plan language. We'll be charging the steering committee with helping to get the word out about the project as well, encouraging public participation, and really helping formulate a lot of the language that goes into this plan. So I'll just hand it over to Noor now to kind of walk through some of our initial findings from the additional findings from the engagement, as well as our findings from the trends analysis.
Thank you so much, Matt. So one of the first things we like to do when we approach a plan like this is really look at the historical sense and the historical trends. And so what we've done specifically is look at how land use has evolved in the past 10,000 years. And so whether it's First Nations and how the colonial era has progressed from the early American era, from the founding of a lot of the incorporated parts of the parish, to more of the bedroom suburban use of land. And this ranges from, when the first subdivisions were created all the way to Hurricane Katrina and the effects on land use from that. And one of the things that we've really noticed is how often and how quickly the population of St. Tammany has grown. And so the parish has been one of the fastest growing parishes in the state. And between 2000 and 2020, so the past 2 decades alone, the population has grown by 41%, from less than 200,000 to over 270,000 people. And a lot of the times we might think that a lot of this growth has come from incorporated areas or the cities, but actually over 80% of this growth has come from unincorporated areas. If we look at the state of Louisiana's growth rate, it's only grown by a little over 7% during that same period. So you can really see a stark difference on how much faster St. Tammany Parish has grown than the state average. And especially following Hurricane Katrina, it's become the second largest parish to host evacuees after Jefferson Parish. And a lot of these evacuees have permanently relocated to the parish. As we can see here from the graphic, since the 1950s, St. Tammany, both unincorporated and incorporated, has steadily grown, whilst other parishes in the surrounding region have either steadily decreased in population or have plateaued. And with this increase in population, we can obviously see that there have been a lot more investment in residential areas and in homes. So nearly 1 in every 4 houses in unincorporated St. Tammany was built in this century, so in the past 20 years alone. And nearly 15% of all land in unincorporated St. Tammany is residential in use. And considering the large amount of land that's been dedicated towards agricultural or more forest or uses or have a protected designation, that's quite a large amount. Specifically, a lot of the homes are predominantly owner occupied, so almost 4 in 5 houses compared to 2 in 3 houses for the state of Louisiana. And then home builders have created about 20,000 new homes since 2000, and this is up to approximately 82,000 homes. Diving into some of our more environmental trends, we understand that environment plays a really large role in the parish and affects a lot of, land use trends and a lot of the specific areas of quality of life that people love to see around the parish. And so one of the things that we looked at is the elevation and how that affects soil, how that affects water. Current elevations in St. Tammany range from over 100 feet above sea level to 3 feet below sea level, especially in areas where marsh has been drained and reclaimed around Slidell, for example. And you can see here specifically where naturally more coastal areas have a much lower elevation. This plays into a lot of the water resources in the parish. So wetlands and surface water make up approximately a quarter of the parish's area. And then there are 7 main watersheds and associated subwatersheds. But in addition to that, the parish also has a lot of groundwater and aquifer resources, and they're used for public and domestic consumption. And so the way water impacts land use, impacts the way people use the land is pretty significant. And this is especially considering the flood risk. Flood risk in Louisiana in general is pretty high based on analysis in past, present, and future. And this analysis should be a significant driver in determining land use patterns within the parish. And that's why it's really important to develop responsibly in a lot of the upland areas so we don't burden lowland areas that are more susceptible to flooding. And so we can see here, I believe that this map is looking at, the more moderate. There is a high, moderate, and low probability of flooding. And so we're looking at a moderate outcome. And we can see where a lot of the land here has more than 15 feet of flooding. Some of the blue areas have 1 to 3 feet. The orange has 5 to 10 feet of flooding. And then the bright red areas have more than 15 feet of flooding. Moving towards some more economic trends, we've seen the number of jobs in St. Tammany increase by 64% between 2017 and 2002. And this has outgained the population growth of 27.2% during the same period. The job industries themselves have also become a lot more diversified. However, we still see approximately half of the population that live in St. Tammany commuting out of the parish for economic opportunity. So that's something to consider. As we look at the map that's showing on the screen here, we can see that a lot of the jobs are concentrated in more of the unincorporated areas. However, there are still lots of jobs all over the parish, and that's something to be aware of as well, that it's not just completely located within incorporated areas. And so we'd love to share with you some of the preliminary results from our visioning phase that took place in October, November, and December of last year. And so looking first at the word cloud to the right here, we asked the question, that St. Tammany Parish is really known for its quality of life. And what does that quality of life mean to you? Many of our respondents said that Safety is a huge aspect to quality of life. A clean environment is having, a space where family can thrive, where schools are doing really well. All of these are really important components to quality of life. And we've also put together four themes that we've heard from the visioning process as well. So first, to encourage sustainable growth. And underneath all the themes, we've picked out direct quotes from people that we've engaged with, whether it's through the survey, through the idea board, through the mapping process, or even just in person or in interviews. So we're showcasing here, the quote for sustainable growth says, the study occupancy of commercial, that we should study occupancy of commercial space before granting more commercial construction, and that there are a lot of vacancies that are available. The second thing is a lot of residents want an investment in local business, specifically in businesses that are sustainable, that support tourism. And so, for example, here, the Canoe and Trail Adventures was one of the businesses named, and it's a business that both residents and visitors of the parish enjoy. Third, of course, we've heard many comments on protecting the natural environment, whether that's green spaces, whether that's the water. Here, the example that's mentioned is the Flatwoods Preserve. And so a lot of people have been saying that we need more preservation, and they want to see the spaces that they value, the spaces that they visit, being preserved. And then finally, a lot of people have mentioned that they want to see an improvement in multi-mobility. And so, for example, in this comment, the person asked that they want less new or redone roads without bike paths, and they want the bike paths to connect the parish, which is great and obviously has health implications, positive health implications. So something like improving multi-mobility is also a very common theme that we've heard. And so the project timeline for the next steps, as Matt has previously mentioned, we hope in February to be able to publish the draft vision statement and supportive goals for the project. And then in the spring, present the growth scenarios, hopefully in person, but if not in person, we'll manage to do it virtually. And with that, we can get started on the Q&A portion. We're a little ahead of schedule, but that's good news because that just means we have more time for questions and discussions. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A chat. I don't see anybody on their phone, but if you are and I haven't caught you, all you need to do is press *9. That gives you the ability to raise your hand and we can unmute you and allow you to talk. Matt, do you want to say anything or have I missed anything?
No, thank you. That was really, really informative, and it does look like everyone is here on the app. And so to ask a question or register a comment, simply use the Q&A function or the chat window. You can also chat with us. And yeah, I mean, we're here today to kind of provide, again, an update on the status of the project and answer any questions that may be at this point. If there are no questions, that's all good too. But just want to make sure that no one feels left out, that they are not caught unaware of any events and that they have a chance to participate. So looks like we do have a question about when the Pinnacle Shopping Center in Covington will be done. Don't have an answer for you on that. Haven't really been involved on that project specifically, but I do know what you're talking about. I'm not sure. That would be a good question. We can have refer to the planning department. Ross, I see that you're in the call. I don't know if you have a response for that, but feel free to chat it out to the group. But
we have another question. Meanwhile, if Ross has an answer to that, asking when can we expect to see plans on how to address flooding issues on Sharp Road and the nearby neighborhoods?
Got it. All right. So plans on how to address flooding issues. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways that the comprehensive plan can address flooding issues. One is through just broad policy objectives. And so the comprehensive plan will likely include some specific actions recommended to address issues of flooding broadly, not just on specific neighborhoods, but for instance, it will likely include some recommendations for updating the development code, if not including specific actions such as changing the minimum performance level of a retention pond from, say, a 25-year storm to a 100-year storm. Or it may include something a little bit broader, such as evaluate opportunities to update the development code to prevent flooding. Probably trying to find something somewhere in between those two, so it's not overly prescriptive. Again, the comprehensive plan is intended to be high level and broad, but also it shouldn't be so broad that it's meaningless, right? And so we're going to work with the steering committee to find the appropriate language to include in some of those specific recommendations referring to reducing flooding risk throughout the parish generally. Now, when it comes to addressing specific places within the parish, that's where we'll want to look at the future land use map. And so it'll be really important in this process to decide, how should the floodplain of this parish's various rivers be treated? Should those be reserved for certain types of development or no development at all? And the future land use map is the tool that a comprehensive plan uses and includes to specify that type of development that ought to occur. Again, it's not supposed to take the place of the zoning code. The zoning code carries the force of law and includes the specific provisions of precisely which uses and the type of density, the setback requirements, landscaping requirements. That's all within the zoning code, and the future land use map is not intended to replace that, but to provide the higher level guidance for the type of zoning that ought to be applied in various areas. So when it comes to Sharp Road and nearby neighborhoods, we'll want to make sure that you are involved in looking at the various growth scenarios that we put together. That's going to include a couple of different potential future land use maps to react to.
Great. And I do just want to mention that this presentation is being recorded and it's going to be going up on our YouTube channel. And just for everybody who's watching the recorded version who can't see, Ross answered the first question and said that there is no specific time frame for Pinnacle as retail has changed due to COVID and that the market is fluid. So just for anyone who isn't able to see the chat. So we have another question that's asking, how can we find out what is being built in certain abandoned strip malls and where could we go for this type of information?
Yeah, so I think the planning and development department division, typically are getting the applications for permits for new uses for structures, and so they would be your go-to agency for what's the latest proposal for various sites. The question of abandoned strip malls, that's an interesting one though, especially in the age of online retail and now of COVID. Commercial, we're seeing this across the country. It's not just a St. Tammany or local issue, but a lot of communities, especially kind of business centers, retail centers, are finding that demand is much lower, and that their facilities may, warrant a closer look at what might be a more appropriate use going forward. And so that's a really interesting topic that we look forward to having some good discussions with in our next phase, where we're looking at different growth scenarios.
We have a comment that says, there is another old railroad right right of way that goes north from Slidell. I think the parish looked into this but did not have sufficient funds to acquire, and that this could be a goal for more bike paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of support for a vision for a bike network throughout the parish that builds off of existing assets like the Tammany Trace. And so that's a really good point right there. I didn't know about an old railroad right-of-way coming out of Slidell. I know about the one that the Trace was supposed to be expanded to that was recently opened at Camp Salmon, but we'll take a look at that.
And a follow-up question is, how much time will the Planning and Zoning Commission have to review the completed plan before sending it on to council?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You know, they'll take as much time, I suppose, as they need. You know, it'll be typically the process would be to get their approval before going to council, and they set their agendas and month to month, and so you know, hopefully it's in really good shape, the plan, you know, the draft plan when it goes to them, and they're all on board with it. But certainly if there are any issues, if anything's missing, if anything is off, you know, we're certainly here to respond to any concerns or criticisms and resolve those. So, you know, I guess, you know, without saying that they'll take you know, as much time as they need, you know, I think that what's appropriate usually is to have a little bit of revision based on comments, and hopefully if it's something that they agree to and can check off, they'll have their vote and be able to pass it on to the council as soon as you know, they're all on board with it.
Yeah, and to add to that, Ross, who's the director of planning for the parish, said it's a 30-day public review comment period is usually concurrent with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right, right. So the plan will be published, and there'll be ample opportunity for the public. You know, we'll have it online. We'll have public printed versions at public places for people to review and provide their comments on.
We have a question asking whether the proposed new connecting road from Pelican Park to Highway 1088 in Mandeville, whether there are any further updates on this particular project.
Yeah, again, we don't have an update on that specific project. You know, we are looking at what the long-term plans are for the parish's roadways, and looking at what the state's plan, the Regional Planning Commission, which distributes federal funding throughout the parish and has a long-range priority list of projects. And so we're taking those into account as we look at where new development can be possible. But I don't have an update on that specific one.
I have a question that is asking, how can residents contribute their ideas and concerns about plans before they are final, and that public meetings can be too late for good discussion and idea submission? And I can't speak to other plans, but I can speak to New Directions 2040. You know, the engagement process is running from, or has started from November of 2020 and should be running up until December of 2021. And so I've posted a link on the chat that can take you to the engagement portions of the project. And we're really utilizing, you know, looking at every comment, at every survey, and taking in these ideas and developing the vision statement and the goal statement that we've mentioned before. And we're going to be publishing those for public comment as well. And so we hope that we've been engaging residents as early as we can and throughout the entire project, so that it's not too late for a discussion and idea submission for New Directions 2040.
Yeah, we haven't scheduled the next phase of meetings in which we'll be presenting the draft vision statement and supportive goals and growth scenarios. But those will be advertised well in advance. on the project website, through the parish's news listserv, and we'll be getting the word out to local media outlets. We do have an e-newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. And Nora, if you could also post a link to that sign up page for anyone who hasn't signed up for our e-newsletter yet, but that will be used as well throughout the year. Send about one newsletter about per month and give you ample notice on other meetings, future meetings. But yes, the idea is to be as transparent as we possibly can be. We're posting any kind of old documents or recordings from our meetings on the parish website as well, so people can stay fully informed.
And if if you have questions maybe that you don't think of now and you think of later on, there's a contact form on the website that you can go to and just type in a question or a concern, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as we can.
And we're also able to participate in any kind of, if you're part of a neighborhood organization that has recurring meetings and would like to invite us to come speak to your group about the project, we're happy to do that, especially by phone or video conference. It's really easy for us to do. And so feel free to reach out using that comment form on the website to request a presentation at one of those group meetings, because we do sincerely want to make sure that as many people find out about this as they can, and make sure that no one, when December rolls around and the plan goes up for public hearings, that there's no one out there who said, well, I didn't know about this back in way back when. This is news to me. So we're trying to leverage every communication outlet available to us. Doesn't look like we have any other questions, but maybe give folks another minute or two to share any other comments or questions while we're here. But yeah, we're probably, I don't know if we'll do another series of meetings next month, since we're going to be busy synthesizing all of the public input that's coming in. Mardi Gras happening, people taking a week off, not the best time to engage folks, but likely look to March for our next series of meetings in the second phase, where we're looking at those draft statements, the vision and goals, as well as the growth scenarios. I think that's where we're going to have a lot of really good conversations, and I'll be setting up good opportunities for people to engage in depth on them. Okay.
Yeah, and as always, you can always reach us on our website, and we'll be happy to answer any questions or take any meetings. But thank you so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. We'll wrap that up, and yep, this recording will go on the website, and yeah, look forward to hearing more comments from y'all in the future. Thank you, everybody.